Hey everybody, what's up? It's your boy MJ, and welcome to Before the Pour, aka 20 Questions with MJ. My guest today is seasoned sommelier, wine consultant, and educator, and founder of Volcanic Selections, Jeff Porter. Jeff has been featured in numerous major food and wine publications such as the New York Times, Los Angeles Magazine, San Francisco Chronicle, Eater, and the Financial Times, which is kind of a food and wine publication. Um, Jeff's sommelier career began in Napa Valley, where he worked at Tra Vigne, how's it, Tra Vigne?
Tra Vigne.
Tra Vigne Restaurant in St. Helena. He joined the Bastianich Hospitality Group in 2009 at Osteria Mozza under the auspice of James Beard award-winning chef Nancy Silverton. In 2011, he moved to New York to become the wine director for Del Posto. In 2014, Jeff became the Beverage Operations Director, overseeing the beverage programs for Babbo, Del Posta, Esca, Lupa, Otto, Babbo Pizzeria, and more. And in 2019, Jeff left the Bastianich Group and he began his consulting career and a web series about wine, life, and culture called The Sip Trip. And in 2020, Jeff picked the perfect time to open Volcanic Selections. It's an import and distribution business. We're going to have some wonderful wines from him later. And then outside of beverages, Jeff is an avid at-home cook. He's a doting father, passionate traveler, and a lover of all things barbecue. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you so much, MJ. It's so good to be here.
Anything else you'd like to add to your
I
illustrious?
it's no, that's crazy to hear all that. I'm like I forget what I do every day and what I've done. So thanks for reminding me.
I know that you went to UT
Hook 'em.
and Hook 'em, and so did Matthew McConaughey, and I actually love his book, the Green Lights book. And he said something. You're less impressed. You're more involved with your life and not impressed with your life. So I think that's not that I've done anything impressive, but I'm really involved with my life right now. So, but what we're gonna do right now, my man, we're gonna warm up a bit. I'm gonna ask you some questions, some personal questions, followed by James Lipson's famous 10 questions from inside the actor's studio.
I'm
So the
ready.
key is to answer them quickly. First thing that comes to your mind. Ready?
Purple.
That's fucking awesome. All right, what is your favorite book?
Aldous Huxley. What is my favorite book? Um, well, that wouldn't be my favorite. But you know what? I know this movie's coming out this year. Dune by Herbert.
Oh, they're redoing Dune.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. I
Yeah.
love science fiction.
Okay. So then, what's your favorite movie?
Glory.
Oh, that's a good one. Saw it in the movie theater.
I was a huge Civil War. I am a huge Civil War buff.
Yeah, yeah. Denzel.
I
That,
cried.
that one tear, man. That was like a powerful scene.
I was in 7th grade when that movie came out, and when my parents took me, it was in Carrollton, Texas. There's where the movie theater was, near my house, and I cried from even before that scene.
Mm-hmm.
The whole way. I've not like that movie. It shook me. It moved me, and I loved it.
Awesome. Who is your favorite musical artist or group? A group.
The Beach Boys.
The Beach Boys. Really?
Pet Sounds, I think, is the greatest album ever made.
Okay. I am a vinyl collector. I might have to pick that up.
I love it's. I started playing classical music as a kid, and it's classical music in that form. It's
Mhm.
orchestrative.
Got it,
I,
yeah.
I like stuff like that.
That's really cool. That's something we were talking before we started about music. The orchestral sounds of the '60s were amazing, and I was listening to Barry White. He's '70s, but he had an orchestra behind
Right.
him, and it was amazing. So you don't get that
Or
anymore.
like when you have like the Wrecking Crew, which was the backing band for
Yep.
the Beach Boys, but also for kind of everybody. And then what was happening in Detroit with Barry Gordy and his crew, that just like, and I played the tuba in orchestral music, and it's just like the weight of it all, and you feel like James Jamerson's. Like I play the bass tune, like when you hear the bass and just it moves everything forward. That's if you sit and listen to that song 1 to the end,
All right.
you'll understand.
You might have converted me to the Beach Boys. All right. What is your favorite food? Last meal. What is Jeff having?
Meat and 3 barbecue.
Okay.
Definitely.
Nice. All right. Who's your favorite athlete?
That's a really good question. I know. I'm going like I like. You know what? I know because it was like truly in the formative years, Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten that a lot. I'm not gonna go through the fuck Michael Jordan thing. That
It's
I do
fine.
every
It's the flu and the championship.
You know.
We'll talk about that being a sommelier on the floor of a 3-star Michelin restaurant and having the flu.
Okay.
And doing that.
Okay. Perfect.
Not that I'm Michael Jordan. I'm slam dunking wine.
Exactly.
You get DRC. You get this.
What was your favorite cartoon as a child?
The Animaniacs.
Oh my God. Very cool. What is your current exercise routine?
Kettlebells.
Nice. You're the first person. I'm a kettlebell guy. Been doing kettlebells for like 6 years.
I love kettlebells.
It's the best exercise. With one piece of equipment, I can work my whole body. I love kettlebells.
I fly with them.
Yeah. Oh wow, I can't do that. Wow, that's impressive.
I have a funny story at TSA. TSA doesn't like kettlebells.
I was thinking. I almost bought a case for that very reason. But they actually, I don't know. There's this ex Navy SEAL. He created a leather pouch, and it's called the Bird. And I think you can get it up to like 40 pounds. So you just like go somewhere filled with dirt or rocks. So yeah, and it's like $75. So.
I'm gonna have to write that down.
I'll send you a link, man. All right. What was your favorite cereal growing up as a kid?
Cinnamon Life.
Cinnamon Life. Oh yeah, Life. Hey, Mikey, he likes it. All right. Who's your favorite comedian?
Carlin.
Good one. He was a master.
Carlin or Pryor?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's
same. Yeah.
Yeah. Who would you most like to have a bottle of wine with?
Like throughout history?
Throughout history. Like we have the flux capacitor, which I don't know can somehow bring people back on this show. But yeah.
This is cliche again, but Jesus.
No, listen, that's the second person to say that, and I agreed. We have Patrick Capio. I'm sure you're old friend of yours. He was on, and I said, well, how could you not like? He's the most talked about person ever in history.
Yeah.
Like so, like I want to be like, dude, how do I get millions of people talking about? I mean, how do I get the whole world talking about me?
I mean, I just want to be like, hey, Jesus, what do you think about what's going on now?
Oof.
And just sit back and let him rant.
Oh my God. Okay, now, Jeff, we're gonna shift the tone and the tenor of the questions. I want to know, what is your favorite word?
Bird.
What's your least favorite word?
No.
Good one. What turns you on?
My wife.
Good answer. Good answer. And true. I hear you. What turns you off?
Garbage smells.
Yes, summer in the city.
Woo. It's good to be a sommelier though in the city. You really kind of work the olfactory.
Yeah, exactly. Right, like work your muscle.
It's intense.
I'm getting a funk. I'm getting East 57th Street.
Yeah, exactly.
On a Thursday morning.
You're like, oh, it's a trash pickup day on the Upper East Side.
What sound or noise do you love?
The ocean.
The flip of that is, what sound or noise do you hate?
Anybody outside my bedroom window effing with their car alarm at 4 a.m. Hate that person.
Don't be that guy. All right. What's your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Come on. It's
classic.
It's the gold standard. It's the gold standard. It's the gold standard of curse words.
But I mean, it's positive and negative. There's an Italian word, minchia, which means the same thing. And like, you're like, oh, UT just scored a touchdown. Fuck yeah. Or like, I just stubbed my toe. Fuck. I mean, it's the same.
Well, I mean, that's it. Fuck. It's the intonation. It's the hardest working word in the English language.
I thought it was French.
Depends on if you parlez-vous français. Okay, a couple more questions. I'm feeling this.
Feeling it.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Politics.
The distinguished gentleman from Texas.
Ready fuck shit up.
What profession would you not like to do?
To be honest, I would like to do everything once.
Okay, cool. Good answer. And lastly, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates? Say it.
That's a great
say
question.
It.
No, it's an amazing question. Wow. I mean, the first thing I had was him laughing at me, that or she or it or whatever. But I can just be like, God's just like, that was the very first thing that popped in my head.
That's awesome. Well, that was a lot of fun. If you guys want to hear more of Jeff, make sure you tune into his episode of the Black Wine Guy Experience. Until the next time, it's your boy MJ. Peace. Hey, everybody, what's up? It is your boy MJ, and welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience. My guest today is seasoned sommelier, wine educator, and founder of Volcanic Selections, Jeff Porter. Jeff has been featured in numerous major food and wine publications such as the New York Times, Los Angeles Magazine, San Francisco Chronicle, Eater, and the Financial Times. His sommelier career began in Napa Valley, where he worked at Tra Vigne, which I'm sure I said wrong, and St. Helena. He then joined the Bastianich Hospitality Group in 2009 at Osteria Mozza under the auspices of James Beard Award-winning chef Nancy Silverton. In 2011, he moved to New York to become the wine director for Del Posto. And in 2014, Jeff became the Beverage Operations Director, the BOD. I'm just figuring out that's cool. Overseeing the beverage programs for Babbo, Del Posto, Esca, Lupa, Otto, and Babbo Pizzeria, and more. In 2019, Jeff left the Bastianich Group and began his consulting career and a web series about wine, life, and culture called The Sip Trip. And in 2020, Jeff opened Volcanic Selections. It's an import and distribution business. And outside of beverages, Jeff is an avid at home cook. I hope you're not cooking the house down. He's a doting father. He's a passionate traveler and a lover of all things barbecue. Welcome, Jeff. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you. Thank you very, very much. That's wild.
So tell us what wines you brought for us to drink this evening.
So what we're sipping on right now, I spent all day out trying to convince people to buy wine from me. And this is a sparkling wine from Tasmania. It's a super small family husband-wife operation called Hinskin Rankin. This is from our friends Jane Lopes and Jonathan Ross. They have the Legend Wine Australia import company that I represent here in New York. And this is a 2013 Brut Rosé that I think is stunning. It's the end of the day, so
it's delicious. And when they were on the show, they brought the Brut. I can't remember. It's a lot of wine since they were on the show, but to get the rosé is just a special. So, and then what else you brought?
So I was thinking a lot about what to bring and what kind of wine defines or helps tell part of my story. So I brought Bartolo Mascarello Dolcetto d'Alba 2019. So in my opinion, one of the best producers of wine on the planet, from one of the least heralded grapes on the planet. But in my opinion, Dolcetto is something special and something to be talked about. It's regal in my view and in a small circle of people, but is vivacious and fun and is a serious wine, but at the same time not. And I think that's how I've always kind of defined my wine career. I'm serious when I need to be,
right?
But I just want to have fun.
I love that. I say to people all the time, man, if this shit isn't fun, why are you doing it? You know. So, yeah. So let's. You know what's cool? Let's get both bottles. Let's get a nice.
Right.
So when this goes on the tube of you. We're gonna
and you know what?
And we got a grab bag too.
I'm just gonna,
the first time we got a grab bag.
I'm gonna bust this out because I was like, part of Italian culture, and even though I'm not Italian, I'm as waspy as they come. Food has to be on the table, and I was like, oh, I could do like cheese, but that's cheese is. I mean, I like cheese; it's fun. But you know what? Dolcetto and a good bacon cheddar cheeseburger with spicy fries is where it's at.
Oh my God! So this is the first on the show.
Now we have what wine's for. It's not supposed to be just for drinking. It's something to complement, food.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we got the fry thing here, so we can do that. So boom.
I'm loving season 3 of the Black Wine Guy Experience. It is. You see how the show is escalating, everybody, right?
Here's a napkin.
In such a great way. We're just ripping paper bags open here. All right, so very cool.
Get the other bottle.
We have so much stuff to get into in the show, but I always like to start at the beginning. So tell me about your childhood and grow up in Texas.
So I was born in a town called Webster, Texas, which is the gateway to NASA for anybody that likes NASA. Most people think NASA's in Clear Lake, Texas, but it's technically in Webster. So small town. My parents met there in the 60s. Neither of my parents are from Texas. My mom's from upstate New York. She's from a town called Glens Falls.
Okay.
And my father's from Phoenix, Arizona. And they happen to be in Texas because my mother's father, who was a civilian contractor with the Air Force after World War II, when Kennedy established NASA, he got moved to Houston to set up NASA. And then later in the 60s, my dad's father was an insurance guy, and Texas was the place to be, and so they moved out there, and my parents met, and voila, here I am. We moved around a lot as a kid, and then we finally settled in North Texas, in a town called Louisville and Flower Mound. Those are the 2 towns I grew up in. They're like an hour and a half northwest of Dallas.
Okay.
They're farm towns. It was the beginning of kind of like the suburban craze. And then we moved way out in Flower Mound. Like my high school commute was a 30-minute drive with no traffic in my 2-tone brown and gold Dodge Ram V8 318 pickup truck.
Oh my God! So you had to drive a half hour to get to school.
Just to get to school, yeah.
Damn.
It was country. It was country and suburban living, which was fine, and it was a great childhood. And I am blessed because my parents are amazing people. My mom is one of the most gracious, kind people I've ever been around, and luckily some of that has rubbed off on me. And she was a nurse all her life, then got into palliative care, which is end of life care. And just she takes care of people. And my father was a businessman. Although I still kind of think he worked for the CIA because we never knew much about what he did. He was never home. That's still speculation. He was a really good shot, and when I was a big athletic kid in high school, he took me down with a leg sweep because I'd done something really bad at home, and I was like, "This is not."
Yeah, you're a big boy, man.
Yeah,
and to have your dad some 40-year-old just leg sweep you.
Yeah.
And you didn't, and he didn't. Did he study martial arts?
No, I have no idea.
Was he going to a dojo? I mean,
my dad's still a mystery to me. At the end of the day, he's your prototypical, just normal looking white guy, glasses, went to work.
See, but now you got my brain thinking because I had worked with someone. Same thing. I was like, you sure your father worked for the CIA? Like these international businessmen, in the 70s and 80s, people don't get so.
Anyways,
I mean, people don't get those movies are that. A lot of that's declassified information, right? So when you see Jason Bourne, they setting up with companies. They send people and set them up with companies around the world. Anyway, I digress.
So it's kind of the family joke because I list out the whole progress of thinking of I was like, this makes so much sense, and my dad's like, we can't talk about it. I think he just feeds
but now he's feeding into it, right?
But the thing that set me on my path and growing up in these small towns and having Dallas close by is my parents, and the thing that I'm so happy they instilled in me is like the value of money and what to do with it.
Okay.
We were never rich, we were never poor, we were like straight ball middle class, but we lived in this area where like people would spend money on like the satellite dish or have more than one TV and have cable and a pool. We had one TV, we had cable, but no pay channels, no satellite dish. My dad only bought cars in cash, so they were always cheap, which is another freaky thing. Why buy a car in cash? And maybe he was a hitman. I don't know. like, I have no idea. But what we would do is we would travel.
Okay.
And so my dad would always either link some of his business trips to the whole family going somewhere. So like I'm from, Flower Mound, Texas, kind of nowhere. When I was 3, we went to New Zealand.
What?
When I was 6, we were in England. By the time I was 18, I'd been to like 40 countries.
Wow.
And that's what he spent the money on. And in that informed my life. It got me out of a very closed society. And I loved my childhood, but it was monochromatic.
Mm-hmm.
It was mono-thought.
Mm-hmm.
And that allowed me to break out, I think, mentally and a lot of my friends, like in the friend group that I'm still connected to that I went to high school with, none of us live where we're from. They work in journalism, film, and they're thoughtful human beings who don't rely on Trumpism or anything like that. And I think travel is what breaks those bonds, or breaks you're being bound by whatever you're stuck in.
I wholly agree. I mean, I didn't travel much as a kid, but once I did travel, I just, and like, I'm from a place where people don't even leave like the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even like traveling to other states, just because I was an athlete, so I got to travel to other states. You need to see more, but to have the international experience you did, like you said, almost 40 countries by 18, like that's amazing. So given that you had all that, seen all that at that age, you decided to stay in Texas for university.
That wasn't really a decision. It was more than just, it was the only place that we could afford, and I got in that we could afford. So I'd gotten into like Notre Dame and then Pomona, and I went to a really big high school. Even though we were in a small town, like all the schools, all the villages fed into the school. So like 5,000 kids. The graduating class was like 800 something kids. And I was a very good student. I always made straight A's, and I did good on all the tests, and I applied. I wanted to get out of Texas.
Okay.
I wanted to go to Harvard or Brown or and I didn't know I was a dime a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
That's my, even though I traveled, I didn't know that this being a little white kid with good grades, there's a lot of us who had privilege. I didn't know that. I mean, like,
I didn't know it either.
And
I'm not even white, so.
And so I needed to say, my scores weren't good enough,
Right.
but they were good enough to get into a few places. But then when it came down to it, I also wanted to be in the Navy. So the University of Texas had a Naval ROTC, and I wanted to be a doctor. And so I got that, and you could apply for the Naval ROTC scholarship and do well in school. And so that's why I chose you. I mean, UT chose me, basically.
Gotcha. So, but I mean, I've been to Dallas. I've only been to Dallas and Austin, right? I was in George W. Bush Airport once in Houston on the way to Arizona. I would like to go to Houston. They got a pretty good food scene.
Great food scene.
There.
Good people.
Yeah. But I went to law school with this guy, Garth, who was from Texas and had went to UT Austin. And this was in the mid-'90s when we were in law school. And he's like, I'm telling you, you got to go to Austin. I know you like New York City, but you're going to love it. And I wish if I had went to Austin before the year 2000, I would probably be living there because you could actually buy a house for like $180K.
It was nice house.
A nice house too, like Craftsman, like it was. And South by Southwest had been going on, but it was still the best kept secret. You know, now it's fucking
You
can't touch
no,
it.
No.
You might as well move to California. It's California. It's like Santa Barbara prices in Austin.
Except for there's no income tax in Texas, so that's
There is that. There's that.
But there's also a lot of
But there's
other
all,
things you can't have in
there's,
Texas either.
but you know, like there's lots of things you can't have in
You
Texas,
can have guns,
like an abortion,
but not abortion
you
or
know.
health
I
insurance.
mean, so like I said, if I had went there then, been a different story. But what was it like to go to the famed UT Austin? Keep Austin weird, hook 'em horns.
It was fantastic, and I was, to be honest, I was scared because it's a university that has in between, depending how you count it, between like 65 and 70,000 students. So it's its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's
its own city.
There's a dorm room that has its own zip code.
What?
Yeah, that's that big. I was
Everything's bigger in Texas.
Yeah, I was so anti going there. Like, you have to go to orientation, and I was like, my parents were like, you have to go to this. You have to go to college, and I was like, oh, okay. So I go, and I'm like kind of butthurt about it because I didn't get into where I wanted to go, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be so bleh. And I go there, and like the spirit of Bevo, which is like our mascot, like I'm like, oh, singing the songs. I'm like, this is amazing, and like any place, and I think that's maybe it translated to coming to New York too. In big places, my recommendation is always you find the niche that fits you best, and then you grow from there.
Right.
And the cool thing about it, I was studying chemistry for pre-med stuff, and you find that group of people, and then within that group of people, you find more friends. And like with ROTC, that was the fraternity I was in. That was like this group
Gotcha.
of men and women, and I was only in it for 2 years because then it came out for the scholarship, but they're like my eyesight was too bad to actually get the scholarship or be in the Navy, so I was depressed because all I wanted to do was be in the military and specifically be in the Navy. And then I found the rowing team crew.
Okay.
And for men, rowing is a club sport, and for women, it's a varsity sport.
Mm-hmm.
But they train together, and you get to use the same facilities. And so I found rowing, and I fell in love with rowing, and that became the dominant part of my college career.
That's really cool. People at crew is a tough sport.
Yeah, I was much fitter.
People don't.
Awesome.
It's a tough
So good looking.
sport. I ran track. I look at myself. I was like, man, I was handsome.
Yeah.
Now I'm fat. no, it's funny. This is just a different time, right? So, so you are, like I said, you grew up in Texas, but is this where your love of barbecue? Did your dad barbecue, or did that happen when you got to Austin, like Central Texas barbecue? Like
my dad barbecued, and I remember, I think it was for my dad's 40th birthday, maybe 45th birthday. My mom worked for the school district as a school nurse at one point in her career. In the vocational school, she knew like the head of the teacher of the welding class, and so she had the welding class make him like a big smoker, like out of the oil drums.
Mm-hmm,
and so they like, clean out the oil drums, and then they like weld it together. And so it showed up and had the big thing of Texas on it. It was awesome. And so he would grill and barbecue on that. And that's kind of like the smell of smoke, the tradition. It's just this thing where you're the happy memories of doing something slow and being with my father, and then seeing how happy people were when they ate the food. And I was like, well, this is awesome, and it smells good, and it tastes good, so I'm in. And then when I went to Texas, there's barbecues everywhere in Central Texas specifically. Yeah. And I just kept up with it. And then when I got older and moving around, I love being in front of the grill. I mean, I think like a lot of people, I don't know if you remember in like Beavis and Butthead, but I think it was Beavis like fire.
Yeah, of course. Like, yeah. That was the best. It was like they were pyromaniacs, and then I guess some kid was playing with matches, so they stopped all the fire references. And there's a great episode where he goes, whoa, that was close.
Yeah.
Like he did, how he would get amped up to get ready to say fire. He's like, whoa, that was close.
And so
Mike Judge, genius.
Yeah,
oh my God.
I mean, Office Space.
Oh my Office Space.
One of the greatest movies ever made.
Oh my God. That is such a great movie. If you haven't seen Office Space, go check that one out.
And if you have seen it but haven't seen it in a while, do it again.
Exactly. The paper thin walls.
This is my stapler.
Oh my God. I do go down these rabbit holes. Oh my God. Sometimes. Oh my God.
But the love of fire and like wanting to burn stuff but not get in trouble.
Right.
Barbecue is a great place for
I mean,
it.
if you're a teenage kid or a, prepubescent kid, you get to play with fire.
My dad's like,
it's sanctioned.
go light the barbecue, and you're like,
Right.
and this is like, when we were first starting the barbecue, you get like the thing of lighter fluid, and you're just like, and the flames are going through the roof, and your dad's just like, don't do that. And you're like, sorry.
So, quick question: What was your favorite barbecue joint when you were at UT?
When I was at UT, these aren't like the popular ones that there are now, but like the Salt Lick was kind of like the most famous one at the time.
Yeah.
And the other one in Austin proper that I like to go to because it was a good concert venue was Stubbs Barbecue as well, and that's before like the sauce came out.
Yeah.
But like driving around, I love Mueller Barbecue. And then also there's this place in a town called Luling, Texas, called Luling City Market. And I love it. And the other thing I love about barbecue is it's like the OG fast food because it takes forever to cook, but you just queue up, someone slices it for you, you have it for lunch, you inhale it, and then you go back and work.
Yeah, yeah. So there are a bunch of new places. Have you been back to any of the new places?
I like Franklin's. Aaron Franklin is a genius.
Isn't that's an experience? I don't know what. He's actually people are pissed off because he's not open. He's just doing takeaway because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But oh man, I hope people get. That's an experience. It's a bonding experience to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go stand in line. And like if you get there at like 6:30, 6:45, you're way back in line. But it's like tailgating, and people are out there with beers and wine and prosecco and it's mimosas and it's a lot. It's an experience and fucking worth it. And then have you ever been? Have you ever been to Brown's Barbecue?
I've never been to Brown's Barbecue.
It's a food truck. It's at some bar. I want to say it's off of Lamar. I'll send you a link, but pretty killer stuff, man. Really good. And they make a mean banana pudding.
I'm there.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, mean banana pudding.
Vanilla wafers.
Yep. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. All right. So while you were actually in Austin, you took a job at the Central Market, which is one of the premier wine shops in Austin. Is that where you fell in love with wine? Talk about that experience.
I fell in love actually before.
Okay.
That was my first official wine job. But when so I'll back up. My first semester in college. So I was like, I wouldn't say like super straight edge in high school, but like pretty darn close. Like I went to some parties, but I didn't drink because I was really like in love with this one woman who didn't drink. Even though it was funny, she didn't go to our high school and she lived in New Orleans. But I stayed committed. Stupid.
I do have a girlfriend. She's from Canada. It was like the Breakfast Club or something.
Exactly. It's totally like that. And so, you just never had a ton of self-esteem. And so I never had a girlfriend in high school, didn't like kiss anyone or anything. And then I got to college and like when I was in high school, like up until my junior year, I was extremely heavy. And then I lost about 120 pounds my senior year of high school. I joined the swim team. And the it was a very formative time in my life because I put on a Speedo and I couldn't see my feet. And these people accepted me, and growing up as a fat kid was awful. It was the worst. And then having a group of people who were extremely athletic support me, like I couldn't swim half a lap. And then by the time I was done with high school, I was swimming really well, and then that's how I got in the rowing team and stuff like that with the Navy. And but then girls came around, and they started like hitting on me, and I was like, what the hell is going on?
Like,
there are
Jeff.
Parties. What is alcohol? What is an amaretto sour? That is delicious. And I really did bad at school my first semester. Oh my God. I didn't know what class was, but I knew what boobs were. And could make a mean amaretto sour. It's so embarrassing. It's such a disgusting drink.
I bet we could hashtag it and make it have a comeback.
Yeah,
man.
we could make it happen. We would go find the one guy on our dorm floor that was like 21 years old. It's like we called him. His name was Dave. It's like 21 Dave.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's all our money, and I'd be like, make sure to get the Di Serrano. And for some reason, extremely sugary drinks when you're 18-year-old don't give you a hangover.
I know.
But anyways, I sucked at school for me because like coming from like never made below an A in my entire life, and like I got like an A, a B, a C, and I got a D, which means you have to repeat the class. And so my GPA my first semester was 2.4, and I was like, I forget. I was on the deck of our house, and I started crying. I was like, fuck, I'm an idiot. I'm an asshole. I'm wasting money. This is embarrassing. And so it was a huge wake-up call. And so I was like, okay, what do I need to do? It's like, let me get myself out of that situation. So I came back to Austin. I was like refocused. It's like, if I'm going to be a doctor, I got to, obviously, you have to have like a 3.5 GPA to even get an interview for medical school. And I didn't know this, but like the hill to climb to get your GPA out of a hole, and you have to make straight A's for the rest of your college career. It's like, I'm screwed. So I had no qualities. I mean, like the jobs I had in high school, I was a bag boy at a grocery store, a checkout person at a grocery store, and a lifeguard. Those were the jobs I'd had in high school. And so I could do nothing. But the woman that cut my hair at the barbershop, her dad owned a family-owned German restaurant.
Okay.
Which is funny. He was from Berlin, but the restaurant was Cafe Mozart. Mozart's from Austria. So I interviewed there because I used to speak some German. I was taking German classes, and his name was Hans, and he's like, you can be the dishwasher. I'm like, okay, cool, let's do this. Like $4 an hour back then. I mean, it's embarrassing to think like the minimum wage in Texas, this is over 20 years ago, 1995, is not much bigger than it was when I was a dishwasher making $4 an hour.
Wow.
I mean, come on, Greg Abbott, get your shit together. So I start cooking dishes. Cleaning dishes. I'm washing dishes. I mean, it could be like cooking. I mean, the Hobart is really hot.
I know, man.
And it's a humbling thing to be, a kid that, is washing dishes on a restaurant scale. It's gross and you smell really bad. But I work Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. So I remove myself from the party nights.
Okay.
And I smelled so bad, and I was so tired when I got home on those nights. Even if I got home like at midnight, I just went to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd wake up, I got on a schedule, and that's when I got the rowing team. So it was like wake up at 4:30 in the morning, row, have an hour before class, study, and and then I never made below an A for the rest of college.
Wow. That's impressive.
It was hard. It was like, because I'm not, smart is not how you define me. Just like I can read a book and study and get a good grade, but it's just, it wasn't always. Certain classes are easy, but like physical chemistry is like one of the hardest things I've ever taken in my life. And that took a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And, but every night Hans, I think because he felt bad for me, would cook me dinner and give me a glass of wine. And he'd sit me down and he'd tell a story. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. There's stories. It's more than just grape juice. And then months go by and I'm like tasting all these wines and I'm like 19 years old. I'm like, this is cool. I tell my dad, I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. And one day at my apartment, this box shows up and it's a case of wine and a book by Hugh Johnson, Wine. His first book was published in 1968. And if anybody can find a first edition, please let me know. I'd love to buy it to add it to my collection. Please, because it's a thing that it changed my trajectory of all my life.
Okay.
And I read this book, and I was like, there was the rabbit hole immediately. But each book was each wine that my dad sent was a chapter. He had looked at it.
Wow.
And I'm 19 years old, so we start drinking, wine. But I try to do it seriously. In the beginning of the book, he tells you how to taste wine. So I'm like, my friends and I are like doing this, and my dad in the note said, be the guy at the table that knows the wine.
Mm.
You can command whatever business thing you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You're the person that's becomes in charge automatically, even if you're not the host or whatnot.
Right.
And so still no idea of like wine would be, I didn't even know wine could be a career. I just knew people drank it and there's a lot to learn. So turned 20, I'm still at the restaurant. I moved from dishwasher to prep cook to grill cook. So I'm cooking at the restaurant now. And I'm still 3 days a week, learning so much, studying wine. And then about 3 months before I turned 21, there's this really beautiful grocery store. It's called Central Market. It's owned by H-E-B. And in the store, there's this amazing wine section, 5,000 SKUs, 110-foot beer aisle. Because in Texas, you can't sell liquor, so it's all wine and beer. And 5 full-time wine professionals. And you walk in, and they help you. And they have everything from Franzia in a box to Chateau Yquem or Mouton or whatnot. And it's amazing. And I love it. And I'm like, so I start hanging out there and going. It's like, hey, I'm going to turn 21 in a few months. I'll do anything. And a few weeks before my 21st birthday, which was in January 1998, the boss of the store says, you know, meet me here at the Omni Hotel on your birthday. There's a Santa Barbara wine tasting. And we'll just talk, and I'll see what you do. So I go, and I get dressed up. Never been to a professional wine tasting before. And I don't have a suit jacket, so I'm wearing, I remember I'm wearing gray slacks and like a teal kind of satiny, silky long sleeve shirt. I was like almost like Z Cavarici-esque. I'm not 100% sure. Like do my hair up. And so I walk in, he's like, wow. I mean, it almost kind of looked like Desi Arnaz if it was like a little boofier, I need a trumpet or something. And we walk in, and we're going around tasting all the Santa Barbara wines, and all these people there, and smelling the wine. He's like, what do you smell? And I was like, it smells like hair permanent. And he's like, oh, that's good. Find out, later that's a flaw in a wine. And then I'll never forget this giant man. And obviously I think in retrospect, he's not as tall as I think he was, but like at the time he loomed. He's probably like 6'5", 6'6", big guy, like big gut, everything. He's like cowboy boots. And we're sitting there, and he looks at me. He's like, this dog will hunt. And I'm all like, what the hell does that mean? He's like, it means it's good. I was like, it is good. So I still I love that saying. That stuck with me. And so after the end of the tasting, his name's Ross Uten. He now works in Sonoma making wine.
Okay.
And Ross was like, I'll give you a job. You can work, for 20 hours a week, because I was still in school at the time. And you'll be like the box boy, which means the person that sets up the displays, refills the shelves. So I worked 5 days a week from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. And did that. And then every day I came in, and it was some seasoned professionals, and they hazed the shit out of me. It was awesome. Not like a mean, give me swirlies or pull my pants down, but it was just they'd put a Jeff recommends on Behringer Reserve White Zinfandel, or they'd write a Jeff says, and it would be in baby talk. And I was like, you guys are assholes. But it was funny. But every day they'd give me a 3x5 index card. There are 5 wines on it. And by the next shift, I'd have to come back with 5 pieces of information about that wine.
Wow.
Not just about the producer, but if it was let's say it was Bartolo Mascarello Dolcetto 2008, or this was 1998, so 1995. I'd have to come back with information on the vintage, the place, yada, yada. And they did that, and I worked there for 2 years. And that was my school. And this is before the internet. Internet was there. It just
no, I know it wasn't.
There's no Google.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't a thing. I remember. I don't think I got my first email account until '98, and the internet had been around since the early '90s.
I mean, we had Eudora accounts.
So that's super cool. And it's funny. I just was talking with a winemaker last night. So, which will mean nothing to you because it won't be last night when you hear this. But, and he's from Texas, and it's one of those things that just clicked. So people don't realize Texas is, first of all, it's freaking huge. But there's so much wine goes through Texas because steakhouses.
And money.
And money, yeah, because there's I mean, that's another people. Oil, how much? I mean, and it's oil peripherally, selling pipe, people. I mean, so there's shit ton of money, and steakhouse wines. I mean, there's just a ton of wine in Texas. So that's crazy though, man. To get that type of intense education.
And what was super cool, because it was a university town, and so it's a big university town. So the cool thing about my college career is I had Nobel laureates teach me in my science classes, and as you yeah, your intro organic chemistry class may have like 400 kids in it, but as you move up to your senior level, you're in like classes with 12 people and 8 people and 10 people, and you're with like world famous
Right.
scientists or professors. And the cool thing, those people make pretty good money. And so in Austin, and they also travel a lot, and you have professors from all over the world. So the wine selection was global.
Yep.
Like, I mean, we were selling, I mean, I remember the first Burgundy tasting I went to, and this is crazy. It was every Grand Cru. That was my very first. It was they had 3 wines from every Grand Cru.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've never done that ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. That's people like, how'd you learn so well? Because I worked at Acker, and they had the wine workshop, and my first few months I was tasting Petrus. I was tasting everything, like Aubryon 59. I mean, like everything, like port back to 28. I mean, and like, you know, I will never duplicate my first like 3 or 4 months in wine business ever again. You know what I mean? But it really, it's a blessing and I mean, it informs your. It doesn't never occurs, but it informs your palate. And I always tell people like that's how I can tell. Like I'm like, oh, that's really good for like $30 or even $15 because I've tasted outstanding. I'm like, and if it just something clicks and reminds me, I mean, you know, and I love like this is like I love Dolcetto.
Amen.
Don't drink enough of it.
No one does.
I
And
know.
like I like to jump right into this wine is like one reason I also brought this is like I'm a lover of history and I'm a lover of tradition.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily conservative in any manner of the word in the way I live my life or I create wine programs or do whatnot. But I do like tradition and history.
Sure.
And the beauty of Italy is Italy has so many native varietals.
Yeah.
And that's part of its history. It's part of its culture. But the problem with today is like certain things get so hot, not temperature wise, but like popular.
Cabernet Sauvignon kind of fucked Napa because you had all these other great varietals.
You had like great peaches
Yeah.
in Napa,
Yeah.
and now you have shitty Cabernet.
Right. No, it's true. Like so, like I know what you exactly. So, like, I mean, Super Tuscans are awesome, but like, and you know, but like you said, like there's so many indigenous varietals that got pulled that or don't even make it over here. So maybe they get pulled. They don't make it over here because it's not marketable because people. What's it? You know, like when I'm working retail, I'm like, oh, you know. Dolcetto or Barbera, $15, great with pizza, great with any red sauce, and people are like, I'll just take a Chianti, and there's nothing wrong with that. But come on, man, this Dolcetto.
I know it's fire. I mean, this Dolcetto. I mean, this is like this embarrassment of riches, and like this is a Dolcetto that's extremely hard to get. It's more expensive than most Dolcettos, but like Dolcetto as a varietal and across the board from Dogliani, which is like the home of Dolcetto.
Yep.
To Dolcetto Alba or places in other parts of Piemonte is one. It's a grape that's delicious. There's a deliciousness quotient. There's a fun, vivacious note to it.
Yep.
But there's this tension and this seriousness to it. Like I've always like if you love Beaujolais, you have to love this wine. And I think this wine's this like so people will crucify me for this, but they're like I think this is as serious and as good as Cru Beaujolais and what people think.
Oh no,
like,
I just tasted this. I mean, this is like, it's like the Wu-Tang Clan that came to bring the pain hardcore to your brain.
That's right.
I mean, it's just the nose is just it's this tension. I'm getting like licorice, but it's so floral, and then the finish was like, you get all the sweet fruit on the finish.
Right.
I just finished, and it's still long. I'm like, oh man, like. This is brambly wild berries, really ripe plum. Yeah, it's delicious. And even then, I mean, even if this is a $50 Dolcetto, like the equivalent bottle from like Burgundy is $500. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's my thing too. Like sometimes your splurge bottle should be an off varietal because like you know it's what you're the complexity and I'm like you. For me, wine's the stories always pull me in, man. You know what I mean? But this is
well in the care, like when you get a great producer like this, like Mascarello, the care they put into their top wine and the care they put into this are equal. The other thing about Dolcetto is like if we don't talk about it more, if we don't drink more of it, it's going to continue to be ripped out and replaced by Nebbiolo. And Nebbiolo, I mean, like I'm wearing my Barolo Bear T-shirt today.
Barolo Bear.
So, Barolo Bear. I'm repping Texas.
I
here
did.
and
So he's
Barolo
got armadillos.
And
but you're right. Then it becomes like okay, here's a shitty $50 Nebbiolo.
Right.
Because
not have-
because I can sell it for $50.
Right. And the other thing, you talk to producers like Maria Teresa Mascarello, who's the proprietor of Cantina Mascarello. I was talking to her. I was like, what's your feeling about Dolcetto? She's like, ugh. She's like, I love it, but I hate it because it's extremely hard to grow. It grows so most grapes grow vertically, and so this grows out. So you have to kind of bring it back in, and you have to teach it what to do. And then when it comes into the winery, it goes reductive really, really fast. And it's not something you can just like pump a lot of oxygen into. You have to watch it. If you miss the point at where it goes reductive, you're screwed. It stays in there. And I always like to kind of anthropomorphize everything. But with wine, Dolcetto is this like, there's the three primary red grapes of Piedmont. You've got Nebbiolo, which is like the regal, it's living in the penthouse. It has an art collection, very fancy, but also an approachable, person and enjoys life and can give you a lot, but knows it's where its place is. Then Barbera is like that kid in high school whose friends across every clique. Everybody loves Barbera. Barbera is the like with the band nerds, the drama kids, the jocks, the teachers.
It's that
like
scene in the Ferris wheel, the dweebs, the bird, all the
Yeah.
she names all the cliques in high school, right?
In
They all
Barbera-
think Barbera's a righteous dude,
right. And then Dolcetto's like the goth kid who's like, no one likes me. And then people are like, oh, did you see what Dolcetto did? Did you see that piece of art? That was amazing. But no one likes me. and so like, if we don't pump up Dolcetto, it's gonna go away. And that's like my fear is like, think about how many like trees or animals or plants or bugs or whatnot have been lost. It's the same with grapes. There are grape varietals that disappeared.
Yeah.
One, because they're hard to grow, and it's true. Dolcetto is a pain in the ass. But just like, people who may be pains in the asses, if you give them some care,
Right.
put them in the right direction, they produce wine like this. That's monumental, delicious, and that's why I brought you the hamburger.
I
So
know.
we got to try this.
Yeah.
So I hope you're not allergic to anything, because
No, I'm not.
I kind of put a lot of stuff on here that I
No,
thought.
I am.
So this is the Junior Bacon Cheeseburger from Five Guys with
Okay.
mushrooms.
With mushrooms. Okay.
So let's.
first take a bite of burger here on the shell.
There's nothing better than burger.
I agree. I tell people, winemakers, highest compliment I can pay you is having your wine with the burger. Nothing better. I think that scene in Sideways is so true for real wine lovers and wine geeks. Like when he cracks the Cheval with a burger. It's like, I don't want a fucking fancy meal getting in the way of this wine.
But at the same time, they're complementary. Like with having. Sorry, everybody. Like this is a bacon cheeseburger, so you get that smoke from the bacon, the richness and fat of the meat, the cheese, the mushrooms, and there's a brightness to this wine. It lifts everything. It like, if you just sat and hoovered this burger, had your Coke, you feel weighted, but you hit it with this Dolcetto, perks you right up. Go on for the second bite. God bless.
So,
Did you like it?
it's delicious. I love a burger. I had Five Guys last night. No, 2 nights ago. So.
I've actually never had a Five Guys burger. First one ever. But I was walking by, I was like, this is what I want to show MJ. This is...
Central Market, talked about that. So, you actually did graduate your degree in nutritional biochemistry?
correct.
So how'd you land there on that particular?
So just kind of like wine, I didn't, in college, I didn't know, the cool thing about university is you find there's all these like avenues and there's all these disciplines, and there was a big nutrition program at the university, and there's 2 paths. There's the science path and the dietitian path. And in the path that I chose, you do most of the dietitian stuff. And this is when I was, so I'd been 300 pounds when I was a junior in high school. And then by the time I graduated, college, I was an athletic, like 199. And through rowing and stuff like that. And so nutrition had become a big part of my life prior. And when I, being a fat kid growing up, you go to the doctors and they're just like, you're fat. And like,
back then.
Thank you, asshole. I know. I don't like being fat. It's not a choice. And people say, oh, it is a choice. And it's like, it's more than that. There's psychology.
Mm-hmm.
There's science behind it. But so many diseases are caused by diet.
Yeah.
And diet's not just about eating food to lose weight. Diet's just anything you put in your body. You can have an ice cream diet. You can have a keto diet. Whatever it is, whatever you're eating is your diet.
A diet is your habitual manner of eating.
Right.
Yeah. It's not about weight loss.
And these doctors never, ever once would help.
But doctors aren't required to know anything about nutrition.
Right. They have one semester out of 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's, so my passion, I wanted to be, and this is where I struggle today as a 44-year-old man who's spent 20 some odd years in the wine business. I struggle with the fact that I'm not helping people like I feel like I should.
Right.
I chose maybe the more fun, easy path.
Right.
And I think I justify kind of what I do is like I've brought joy to people, and I think joyousness and happiness and smiles is important. But the systemic change I wanted to make is I wanted another fat kid not to have a doctor not help them. They'd be like, you're fat, just don't eat. Well, fuck you. Like, what do you mean just don't eat?
Right.
And that was a struggle. So like when I made the conscious choice to really lose weight and explore that, and I found out about nutrition, I found out about the nutrition program in the university. That's how I got into it. It was through my past life of being a fat person. And I still, obviously, I'm heavy. I struggle. I've just actually, from 2019 to now, I've lost 50 pounds. I want to lose 20 more. I'll always be a big person. I'll never be little. It's not like in my DNA.
Right.
But I want to be a healthy person. I have a 7.5-year-old kid. I don't want to die of something stupid.
Right.
And that's through diet.
Right. No, that's cool. So then you get out of school, you graduate, and then...
I don't get into medical school.
Oh, so you did still want to go to medical school?
Yeah, no, I applied.
Even though in the Navy. Okay, so you didn't get to medical school.
I wasn't able to go into the Navy.
Right.
Because of my vision.
Eyesight, yep.
Then, so I keep the track. I'm working. I nutritional biochemistry. I work in a laboratory. I'm also working at the wine store. The wine is still in my head as just a thing for fun, and like, to be the guy at the table. I apply to medical school. I take the MCATs. I suck the first time I take it. Get in my head, and I have a problem with that. I'll get in my head, and I just like it's like this, the failure thing, the scared comes through, and then I regroup. I'm like, okay, and then I take it again, and I do much better, and then I'm applying to medical school, and I still don't get in, and I'm like shell shocked. I'm like, fuck, what do I do? So I take a step back, I graduate, and then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to work full time at the wine shop. I'm going to go to Europe. I'm going to go visit some wineries as a buyer. I'm 21 years old. I get a trip to Champagne, first wine trip I've taken as a buyer. Changes my life. I come back, I get this stupid tattoo of a pinup girl wrapped in grapes and a French flag. Don't tell the Italians. And my wife hates this with a passion. She every year gives me like a funny Christmas card that's a certificate for laser remover. Maybe one day, sweetheart.
Could have been worse. You could have came back with like a Veuve Clicquot.
Right.
Right. That'd be really bad.
And then, so I decide, hey, I'm gonna do this for right now. I'm gonna just like, I'd done school and I'd worked so hard to make the grades, and I just school, and work and the rowing team. I was gonna have fun. Restaurants and grocery stores and retail are all kind of incestuous, so there's like a lot of intra-family stuff.
Yeah, yep.
A lot of fun happening.
Yep. Because you work, particularly restaurants, right? Because you're there 70 hours a week. So it's easier just to date.
Right. It's the same. I dated like 4 different girls at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And which is very complicated.
I was like, I don't want to get into that one.
Yeah.
I was sure there was overlap.
Exactly. For them. But and then this was at the 99 2000,
Okay.
and so I was still, driven by this idea of service. I couldn't do the military. I was thinking about the Peace Corps because I wanted to do something more than me, and it's something I still talk about, and I sometimes get on these waves where I'm able to do things today as an adult where I'm like, okay, I can use this time and energy to help people, and then you fall off the wagon because you get just mired in your own shit.
Right.
But I heard about this thing called Teach for America, which is, controversial. But I applied. I love teaching, and I got in. I was surprised because I was very nervous because the majority of the people that get into TFA at the time were like all Ivy League
Yeah,
people.
I went to Harvard, Wesleyan, or little
Right.
Ivies, all that.
And so I'm like at this interview thing with all these Harvard kids, and I'm like
It'll look good on your resume, Biff.
I'm like a public school idiot. But I taught you have to give us a session. So I taught about the colligative properties of ice cream using Ben & Jerry's, and about how ice cream forms. And I got in, and I got a job. So you list where you want to go. So I listed New York City first because I've since I was 13 years old, my dad brought me here. Went to a Mets game, Shea Stadium. I'm a Mets fan since I was 13 years old. I love the Mets.
Have you seen the new ESPN? Did you watch it? Do you know about it?
No, I don't know.
Oh, shit. They debuted this week. There's a new 30 for 30. Once Upon a Time in Queens. It's about the 86
Mets.
Yeah. You got to watch it.
I got to watch it.
Oh, my God. You'll love it.
So I fell in love with the Mets. I wanted to move here. My grandmother went to Pratt in the 30s.
Okay.
My grandmother
Wow.
worked at Bergdorf's. My mom's.
That's badass for a woman to go to college
Yeah.
back then, by the way. Woman going to college in 30. That's.
Well, she got a degree in home ec because that's what they could do.
Wow.
But it was a progressive university in Brooklyn back in the 30s, and so there's family ties to here. I really wanted to be in New York. So New York was my first choice. Then it was D.C. because I've always loved Washington D.C. Then it was Baltimore. Then it was Chicago. Then it was L.A. And I got L.A. And I was like, ugh, again, kind of like UT. I was like my last choice.
His fifth choice. I never heard anybody want to move to Baltimore over L.A.
This is before The Wire.
I was gonna say,
came
you
out,
didn't know about The Wire,
I didn't
right?
know about The Wire. I was like,
That's
I like crabs.
I don't like. Hold on. We're gonna take a quick break. We gotta take a quick break, and then we're gonna dive into TFA in LA. All right, we're back, everybody. We were cracking up over the entire break. I gotta tell you, man, this is a baller wine you've brought on here, man. It's really good. Like, people have brought more expensive bottles and they were great, but like, I know we were emailing and you're like, what's your brand? I was like, I threw some things at you, and then I said I do like Italian varietals, and man, was not expecting a dolcetto like this. But anyway, I digress. So your last choice, your fifth choice was L.A. for when you TF. So what was that like teaching in the Los Angeles Unified School District? Must have been hard as fuck. See, he took a pause.
Well, I signed that paperwork that said everything you say will be used. So I'm like, what do I say? No, it was it changed my life. Just like, grow up in Texas and travel. Like, I digress, and I know this is probably turning into way too long of a podcast. Edit this out.
No,
but,
it's not. Listen, we're long form. I'm about to bite into the burger.
Do it.
So,
It's a good burger.
It is.
You want another bite? Okay. And I won't where I'm from is like conservatism and Ronald Reaganism. That's what you're taught. Mm-hmm. And even though my parents, they never emoted a political philosophy. My mom was always gracious, and we went to like the liberal church of our town. I was 3 days a week, 18 years of going to church. I'm like deeply invested in that still today, not from a going to church part, but from a moral standpoint. And my brother, my older brother, and he's amazing. He was like a Michael Keaton guy from Family Ties. He was like that Ronald Reagan loving Republican. And so I followed my brother. He's 8 years older than him. So I actually, maybe starting in 4th grade, became a donating member of the Republican Party.
Wow.
I was so proud of it. I had a card that said my name on it, and you're giving money to hate and divisiveness and racism. I didn't know any of this shit, and I feel bad. Luckily, it was not a lot of money, And then one day, I mean, through the travel, I was waking up, and I people like around my high school, they would say stuff, and I'd be like, "This is you people are crazy. This is not who we are." And I'm blessed to have so many good friends, and my best friend, the man that married us, Joel Rice, known him since we were in first grade. His family were Unitarians, and I would go to his church all the time, and they're the hippies of all religion. And the cool thing about the Unitarian church, and Dallas is a big city, and it's a diverse city, and it's a great, like, I know I may shit on Texas, and I love the state. I don't like its politics, but the people of Texas are amazing people. The state is beautiful within itself. It's a huge state, and the cities are dynamic and diverse and unique, just like any other great city in the world. And so we would go to the Hindu temple of Dallas.
Wow.
We'd go to the AME Baptist church in Dallas, and we'd start seeing these things. And he said, come, this is my sophomore year in high school, and I'm sorry we've taken a big diversion, but it leads up to a lot of this stuff.
I don't know if you listen to this podcast. It's not just about wine.
No, I know,
So it's like,
I just always feel bad.
no, man,
Like,
this is the good stuff. Like, listen, I don't want to talk bricks and fucking residuals.
Oh, I wouldn't know any of that.
I know. People ask that shit sometimes on IG, like, I don't know, fucking the tech sheet's on the website, bro.
It's a Lego. That's a brick.
But yeah, so you're going experiencing different faiths and.
But Joel invites me, and this is like I'm still this card-carrying idiot for the GOP, giving my allowance money to
That's a good
to
racket.
the Republicans. Thank God the internet wasn't there, because now that what they do is they just they take a lot more money. But he took me to a pro-choice rally, and I'll never forget it. So I'm like, yeah, I support, and I hadn't connected abortion. I didn't know that was a platform for me.
Right.
My affiliation with the GOP at the time was literally just following my older brother, and just being like, money. That's all I kind of connected. I didn't know the social aspect of it. And we're marching with all these women and people, and people start throwing eggs at us and the baby killer, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like, and this is where the church has really informed me. I was like, Christ has always taught us to be better, to be nicer, to be love. And I started looking at that, and that's when I started getting really mad at the church and the people that were around. I was like, it's all here. You read the book of Matthew, everything. It's like the biggest hippie in the world.
Right.
And that's when it all clicked. Through my travel, and I used to do this thing with my church. We'd go to Mexico for 2 weeks and do missionary work. But a missionary work was like building houses, water treatment plants, and I was like big kid, so I was like just muscle. I was like, I learned how to lay rebar and hand mix concrete, and that's when it really hit me. I was like, wow, I have so much, and these people have so little, and so happy and so gracious. I can be better, and that's when it all clicked, and I started reading more books and being more open and being like, oh, okay, nope, I'm taking back my allowance money. This is F you guys. And then Clinton came on the scene, and I was like, I feel this. And I was like, I'm down with Bill. And when listening to him, and my junior year of high school, it was his beginning of first term, and we had to give his first budget came out with the healthcare program, and I debated for it. I was like the only person, and the teacher was an avid he used to call the UCLA the University of Communism of Los Angeles.
Oh my God.
And
it's crazy.
Yeah. But I won the debate because he's like, you made more cogent points. He's like, you may turn me into a Democrat. I was like, there you go, because it makes sense. Anyway, so that informed, those experiences informed so much about how I came to want to do Teach for America, and then coming from this very lily white background and going into the heart of Watts of South Central Los Angeles. I taught at Elaine Leroy Locke High School. Ozzie Smith went to that high school.
Okay.
It was rated at the bottom of high schools in California, and it was hard. Yeah. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, and it was the greatest thing I've ever done. And I made so many mistakes, and I feel guilt for it, because I was a 23-year-old kid teaching high schoolers, and I am not being prepared. And a lot of people have an issue with Teach for America because they throw young, unexperienced people who don't study education to the some people would say the wolves. You go through teacher boot camp, and it's hardcore. we're at the University of Houston, six weeks, and it's like 20 hours a day of like, here's how you do this, here's how you do this. And like the people who join Teach for America are all very self-motivated. They're smart people. I mean, some people do it for, I think, like, oh, this is good on your resume kind of stuff too. But there are so many people that care, and so many of my friends who I'm still friends with today from Teach for America are deeply embedded in education reform in the United States, deeply embedded in the movement to help people understand that we have to do better for everybody. That at the end of the day, it's not about, you know, winners and losers. It's about everybody starting at the same starting place, and that's extremely important. And it was amazing to walk into that class. I remember I wore cowboy boots the first day, tan pants, a jacket, and all these kids looked at me. And the racial mix of the school, it was primarily Latino. It was about 52% Latino and the remainder Black. And you know, it was in this time period where, you know, the South Central was also changing in demographics. So the tensions between Latinos and Black, it was really, it was intense, and you could feel it amongst the kids. There was fights all the time. I got punched in the face. I learned very quickly, don't get in the middle of a fight to break it up. You kind of just like yell and scream, and they tucker themselves out. I mean, obviously, if it's really bad,
I worked
you get in there.
I worked in schools like in Gary, Indiana, and Newark, and like, no, you know, I mean, I'm stupid too. I'll get into a middle of a fight, but you're really not supposed to do that.
But the no,
and I'm little guy. I'm not a big guy. But like,
no, like, and this kid like walloped me. It hurt really bad. I was like, ow. But then, like, you know, then you're like, the reason they say don't get in is because, like, if you do get hit, because
what's going to happen, I'm a lawyer, right? So here's what happens. You're going to hit back, and then you're in trouble.
Right.
That's the bottom line. Because it's natural. It's adrenaline. You get hit, you're like, what the? You're gonna swing a kid, and then, you know, fortunately you're 23. Jail. You're gonna go to jail. Fortunately, you don't have a house because parents will sue you. But yeah, so that's the thing. You really don't want to get in it. And oh my God, man, So,
but I gotta tell this one last story.
Please.
So these kids look at this big white guy from Texas. I'll never forget. It's like, this one kid's like, "Who's that big white motherfucker?" And this is what defined my career as a teacher. And even though it was very short, only 2 years.
That's a clip.
In your head, you know, you're taught, you know, how do you react to situations? And I could have taken the, like, you know, you know, don't say those words. And I was like, I'm the big white motherfucker. And the kids loved it. And that, you know, that endeared me with the students. And it was I love the kids, and I had a really great experience. And, you know, it was one of the hardest things. I've never cried so much at a job.
Wow.
And cried for many reasons. Cried for the pressure.
Yeah.
Cried for the lack of
resources.
Cried for the students, like the stories the kids told me. I was like, this is crazy.
Right.
And part of Teach for America isn't just about keeping people in education, but it's getting people who've never had these experiences get these experiences, and it informs the rest of your life.
Right. It's teaching. It is teaching for America. It's not just about the kids, because a lot of, you know, you go to those hallowed walls of the Ivy League, and maybe you haven't seen, you know, but what you've seen on TV, which is colored by whatever channel you're watching, et cetera, and so on. So I think it's a cross-pollination, like, and I think it's very important. Like I said, I worked in education, so I have a colleague, he's worked his whole life, 70 years or whatever, 60 years in education. He went to Yale, an older white gentleman, amazing, was a college president, and he actually believes one of the things is, like, it's important for white students to have black teachers. Mm-hmm. Right, to have that, to see that role, because there's that authority role. They never had to do that, but also just to see people, because people aren't always seen through the media like it's intelligent, like it's it really informs a lot. So I agree with you. I think part of, you know, I was not critical of Teach for America, but I will say this: having worked in education and didn't study education, my students love me. I think there's something refreshing because you actually are teaching. It's not about the lesson plan. Like, they learned about Texas. Those kids, there's some kids out there somewhere who learned something about Texas because you were their teacher.
I'm still friends with some of them on Facebook.
So there you go.
It's like-
That's for me. That's the mark of a true teacher is like that you're still friends with someone. They might ask you a question. You know what I mean? And so I that's super cool. So was it during that time that you started drinking more and more
I
wine?
drank a lot of fucking wine. Oh my God. There's a store in Santa Monica. Oh my God. I can drive there. I can't remember the name at the moment. Shit. I apologize. But a friend of a friend told me about it, and I would go there, and they primarily had Italian wine and Falesco. And this is in the early aughts, 2000.
Yep.
And they were selling like Falesco Rosso for like, $6.99, $7.99.
That was a delicious bottle of wine.
So good. And that's what that became my house wine. And the whole time it was a struggle. It was hard, and I'm not from there. I didn't know anybody there. I didn't have family. I had nothing. And like with Teach for America, you have this intense experience, but they weren't my friends.
Right.
And I made friends, and I made lifelong friends. And the woman who introduced me to my wife is through Teach for America. We taught at the same high school. So that was a huge bonus. But living in LA was hard, and I got in major credit card debt because it's expensive and you make no money, and I like music and I like drinking and I like going out. And so I was like, well, I can have like 7 credit cards, so fuck it. I'll figure it out later. I mortgaged the first 7 years of my life.
Been there, done that.
And through that, I made outside friends and a couple, Arlene and Tom Wazalik. I met Tom on a flight to Austin. I was flying back home to see my brother because my brother still lives in Austin. And we became friends through wine. And that the wine is this connective thing. I've met so many people throughout the world. I could say I'm a teacher, and they'd be like, oh, that's cute. Or that's nice. And when people say that's cute, you're like,
I know. When I work with people, feel like, oh, you're doing good work. I was like, you're fucking. I know what that means.
Right. When you say wine, people are like,
oh, I know. I know. People like, oh, you're a wine guy.
And I'm still friends with them. They live in Vegas now, but like they became like my secondary parents in Los Angeles, and I would go to their house, and they were really into wine and open these wines, introduced me to other people. We'd go to Santa Barbara together, and so I got back into wine, and so I started doing wine things all the time. And then as my teacher, I decided I didn't want to do Teach for America. I'd met my wife, soon to be wife, but we got married in 2007. In 2001, it'll be 20 years in October that we've been together. This year, this next month.
What's your wife's name?
Shauna.
Congratulations on 20 years, Shauna.
And she lived in the Bay Area, and I was like, okay, I want to move up there. I want to work in wine.
See? It's always a love story with wine. Boys, people are moving first. People are moving for someone they are attracted to.
But Arlene, Tom, and I tried to put together a business plan to open kind of like a grocery store, wine store in LA, and we just never got the funding together, and that didn't move along. But I had all the plans, and I'd never worked front of house. I'd never done all these things, but I could see it in my mind's eye. I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. But that didn't pan out. So I moved up north after Teach for America and got a job as a sales rep selling to grocery stores, huffing boxes of wine. I fucking hated it. They called it a retail sales specialist, but basically you're just a merchandiser.
Right.
You dust bottles at Safeway.
Right, and set up the floor stacks.
Yeah. And
Got your box cutters, your best friend.
I'd worked at fine wine restaurants. I traveled to wine regions, and all I want to do is talk to the wine buyer and be like, hey, do you want to try this cool Albarino or Dolcetto or whatnot? And they're like, no, we have this core schematic that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Napa Valley Chardonnay, in cap aisle 6. Get it built.
No, we have. You see those 200 cases of Kendall Jackson back there?
You gotta move it. Isn't this a union store? Isn't that illegal? You gotta move it.
So, and for people who don't know, I mean, the thing with wine in California, gas stations have floor stacks of wine.
It's a Wild West.
It is the Wild West, man. It's so cool. I tell people when I moved out to California, I lived out in California, it's like you could get better wine at a gas station at 1 o'clock in the morning than you could get it like at least 60% of most supposed wine stores in New Jersey, man. Seriously. Crazy.
100.
Yeah. So then how did Tra Vigne happen?
So I was doing a ride-along, and it was so funny that they gave us ride-alongs as like these merchandisers. So basically, an importer, so it was a guy named Rich Robeson. He worked for Winebow.
Okay.
And I worked for the Henry Wine Group, and I had a white Ford Explorer Standard, and we're driving like down to Fremont, and he was like, "You really don't like this, do you?" I was like, "Fuck, I hate it." And he's like, "You're really personable. You're really excited about wine." He's like, "You know more about wine than I thought you would." I was like, "Thanks."
I know. It's a question mark.
Thanks, I guess. And he's like, "Have you ever worked at a restaurant before?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I worked at a restaurant in the kitchen." He's like, "Huh." He's like, "Have you ever worked in the front?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, there's this restaurant in Napa Valley called Tra Vigne," and I didn't know anything about Tra Vigne. So Tra Vigne was started in the late 80s in St. Helena. It was like one of the first, after Mustard's Grills, it was one of the first big restaurants. Michael Chiarella was the chef, famous chef there.
Yeah.
And he's like, they're looking for a new wine person. And I'm 25. And I'm like, sweet. I want to get out of this. I want to go to Napa Valley. I like Napa Valley. And he's like, fax them your resume.
Oh, my God.
So I faxed him my resume. And this was in...
There are people, and I love my young Psalms who were like, what the fuck's a fax?
They're like, is that FACTS?
FAXX? Does that have to do with COVID?
Is that an artist? Yes, you can buy their art. So I faxed my resume, and they called me back, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Because, I'm, fake doesn't
and
make it.
And you went to Kinko's to fax it.
I think I had a fax machine.
Oh, shit. That's right. You were, because you were getting the schematics. You had to go to the
right,
store.
Yeah.
So you actually probably did have a fax machine.
Well, the company I had, like, they gave me all, like, the computer and the desktop, and it was, I had a pager. The sales manager would page you and be like, and it was that weird, like, cryptic number words that would be like boobs.
Yeah,
or
hello. Like, you could spell boobs. You could spell hello. There's like a few words.
But like, where are you? I'm like, I'm at a gas station selling wine. And so I faxed them my resume, and they call me back. I'm like, this is amazing. So I go up to Napa. This is October 2002. And I have all these interviews. And I live in Oakland. I live in Lake Merritt. It's just like an hour and 45 minutes away.
Yeah. Can't afford to live in Lake Merritt anymore.
No. I had a corner apartment on the lake. Beautiful old apartment. It was so cheap.
Yep.
I mean, my car was broken into multiple times.
Yeah.
But I loved it. And except for in the summer, because this weird algae would grow on the lake and it just smelled like shit. But whatever. So... I get the job.
I know. That was nice, Christopher Walken.
Which I'm horrible at.
But you nailed it.
And I'm like, I honestly have no idea what I'm doing. I'm like,
I know. I'm like, holy shit. You're like, how did you get like?
I'm like, how did I get this job?
He's like, I said I worked at a restaurant, man. I was pounding schnitzel.
Yeah, I was literally pounding schnitzel, and now I'm running the wine program for a multi-million-dollar restaurant. I've never been a sommelier before in my life. I really don't know anything. But the cool thing is, I got the job in like November, and he said, you start January 1st. January 1st was my first day of work. I was like, that's New Year's Eve. He's like, or New Year's. He's like, be here.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. He's like, but before you come, you have to read this book called Napa. So there's a book written, I forget the author's name, but it's like the history of Napa. And Napa's this political intrigue, soap opera, all sorts of stuff. So I read it and I go the first day. And Napa's beautiful in the winter. I highly recommend going in the wintertime because no one's there.
Yeah.
The vines are all gnarly. The fog sits on the valley. It's really gorgeous. There's green because it's always kind of some
Because it's wet. Yeah, it's
verdant
a little,
there.
it's a little wet. It's raining a little
It's
bit.
never cold. It's not super cold.
Right.
I mean, we thought it was cold.
Well,
like
when
the
you're in
40s.
California, it's cold, but like if you're from the East Coast, like
We'd be wearing
with
shorts
and shit. Yeah.
And I get the job, and I mean, I immediately love it because it's a show. Like, I love entertaining people. Ever since I was a little kid, I love doing it. I love drama. I love all that stuff. And like being on the floor, it's a party, and I'll never forget. Burgess Smith was the GM at the time, and another like seminal person in my life for hospitality. And so when you walk in Tra Vigne, and the restaurant's now called the Charter Oak, and it's the same building, but the ceilings are like 20 some odd feet tall. You walk through this huge velvet drapery to get into the main dining room, and you look, and it's just expansive and beautiful and big. And he told me, he's like, look at this. He's like, this is your party. Every night it's your party. You're in charge of the party. And what are you supposed to do at parties? And I'm like, make people happy. He's like, that's your only job. Make people happy. And how cool is that?
Yeah.
To throw a party every night.
Yeah, no, that's so cool.
And
wow.
And that was just stuck with me till this day. You come to my house, it's a party. And we're going to have fun. You come to the restaurant I'm at, you come wherever we are. I want to make sure everyone's happy. And it's hard. It's hard work, but it's super rewarding. But being a 25-year-old kid that doesn't know shit does not endear you to many of the staff who are much older than you and have worked at the restaurant for a long time and wanted your job. So there's this one guy I'll never forget. I'm standing at a table about to pour wine, and he elbows me in the back as he's going through. And this is a restaurant where just like it's physical. And he like push it, and like I got that for months. It was just like the servers kind of push you while you're helping a table. Like you could spill on a table. And I was like, and finally,
fine dining. It's a contact sport.
Yeah, and finally, there's like I got the chutzpah to like go up. I was like, what's your problem, dude? I was like, I'm sorry you didn't get this job. That's not that. Maybe it's something about you, not me. And I'm like, he's like 40, and he's like, oh, maybe you're right. I'm sorry. I'm like, yeah, Jesus, we're on the same team. What's your problem? And then, I mean, it goes through the thing, through hard work, through throwing myself into the place, like learning as much as I could about the history, the place, the people, going to the wineries. That was the beauty of being there. Introducing this open idea of wine to the staff and to the guests, it worked out.
By the way, I need some of this in my life, man.
Yeah, you do.
That's good.
Let's go to Piedmont together.
Well, let's do it. Ronnie, did you try this yet? You need to get down. Producer Perks. Break her off some.
I'm sorry. I'm going to eat this whole burger.
No, you're
fine.
Really
good.
Please do. You might be our first, like literally I tell people, I have to be your friend of the show, but you might have to. This might be a two-parter. And I'm okay with that. It's good stuff. So, you basically get the chutzpah, get a little moxie, and kind of check this guy. Then was it? Did that open a door for you there? Did you feel more supported?
Yeah, it was like through that combination of just head down work, showing that I could do the job, showing that I could increase their tips by selling more wine. That was probably the thing that turned the tide.
Of course.
But also just never coming to the level, never being mean, always being kind of jovial and friendly, and then just also like getting out into the community and having the winemakers come to the restaurant and doing more and providing more for the staff.
So how long were you there?
2.5 years.
Okay. Then what was the next move?
So then, at the end, that's when I learned about the Master Sommelier program, the Court of Master Sommeliers. Okay. I didn't know anything about it. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I like education. I want to learn more. And it's I was like, okay, cool. So in 2003, while I was at Tra Vigne, I couldn't get into so at the Greystone, there's like a CIA subsidiary school up there, and I could never get into the intro class. So I looked all over, and my parents paid for this because I didn't have enough money. I was like, it's an investment in my career, and they're like, okay, cool, because the tests are expensive. But there, I found one in Biloxi, Mississippi, at the Beau Rivage Casino and Resort. I lived in Napa Valley, so I had to fly to Biloxi, Mississippi, to the Beau Rivage Casino and Resort and take my intro exam. And that's what I did. And it was awesome. It was fun. The Beau Rivage was pretty hilarious.
I can imagine. And that's on the Gulf of Mexico, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's where I met Doug Frost, who's a master sommelier, master of wine, and he taught our course, and Bob Bath. And they taught the course, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Like, it kind of opened my mind to how to study for wine and other points and parts of it. Was it perfect? No.
Right.
But I took the test. I passed my intro, and I came back, and I was like, oh, I want to pursue this. And then worked, and kind of felt stagnant, and also kind of learned that I was getting paid very subpar for a major restaurant.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I need to make and my wife, or my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she's not in the wine business until very recently. Now she's in the wine business. But she's a graphic designer and photographer, and she just could never find steady work there. And she was just living in Napa Valley when you're not, it's such a mono, and I couldn't ever live there. I like going there, but like, I like being in a place like New York where you can talk about other things. But when you go to like a dinner party there, it's just wine. It was like wine. And you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, I got to stop this. And she hated that. So she's like, we've got to move or we're breaking up. I was like, I love you too much. Let's figure it out. So I applied for jobs at Danielle here in New York, a restaurant called True in Chicago, the Montage Resort in Laguna Beach, and a bunch of other places. And none of them, like they said, my experience wasn't enough. My fine dining wasn't high enough.
Got it. Yeah.
And I'm like, I walk in, I'm like a big guy. I'm not fancy. I can wear a nice suit, but I still don't. I don't know. I don't present myself in this very fancy way. So maybe that got in the way. I don't know. But there was this grocery store company in San Francisco that was looking for someone to kind of redefine their wine program, and because they were family-owned grocery store, they couldn't compete with Safeway, they couldn't compete with like Costco or anything like that, and that's what they were selling in the wine.
Does it rhyme
price.
with Nelson's?
No.
Okay.
It was called Andronikos.
Okay.
They're formed. It's a Greek family that started a produce stand in Albany, California, which is right outside of Berkeley.
Wow.
In 1929.
Wow.
And when I got it there, they had 10 stores all throughout the Bay Area, and they were known for being this really beautiful gourmet store. And they had a good wine selection, but it was still kind of like pedestrian. So they brought me in to, one, increase the education of the staff, and kind of redo the mix to not compete with Safeway and stuff like that. So it was probably one of the best jobs I've ever had because it was really fun. That's when I really started traveling, because part of the thing was I would go find wines all over the world that wouldn't compete with anything, and we'd get exclusives on things and have good price points, and we had 10 stores, and it was the Bay Area, so we're doing
decent, doing decent
solid volume.
Yeah.
You'd put 50 cases of wine on 10 stores. That's 500 cases of wine.
Yep.
Sell it in a month, move it, and so I brought my best buy was a Terrain Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Franc, so from the Loire Valley, biodynamic. Sold it for $10.99 in San Francisco. This is like 2005, 2006. 40 points GP for the store. $10.99 biodynamic wine. Did the first in cap of Greek wine. So we had Sirtico and Malagozia, and that was the thing we brought. And there were flops. Don't get me wrong. Brought in grower champagne to the store, and it did well. But then, just reality and the expense of being a union store and paying well to the employees, it just caught up, and eventually Safeway purchased them. And then I moved to LA.
You moved back to LA.
And that's so while I was at Andronikos, I passed my advanced.
Okay.
and that was amazing. Living in San Francisco was great, and that's where I like met Raj Parr and a lot of the San Francisco wine scene people, and like, and I loved it. It's a beautiful town. I love where we lived, but it was also kind of a constricting town to an extent. It wasn't very pushing anything forward. And then someone called me and said, "Hey, you know, Mario Batali, Joe Bastianich, and Nancy Silverton are getting together and opening a restaurant in L.A." You know, and it had opened, and they're looking for a new wine director, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm interested. I'm ready to get back in the restaurant game," because I had passed the advance, and I was like, "Okay, now it's time to get back into service. I want to be a master sommelier."
Okay.
And I also love service, and so flew down 3 different interviews, and then I got the job. And I told my wife, I was like, "Let's go to LA." And she's from LA, and she was very, very nervous because she felt like the moment she would be back in LA, that was done. She was born and raised in LA, lived in the Bay Area, and you come back home. Her parents are there, but you know, I'm good at convincing people and stuff. I sell very expensive wine for no reason, so you know, like, come on, baby, it'll be great. So we moved back, and then started working at Mozza, and it was David Rosoff is the next person in my life that kind of was seminal, and he made me a sommelier. He made me understand attention to detail. He made me understand how to lead people on the floor of a restaurant and be focused and understanding and having the vision, not just here, but behind your head, and listening to the dining room and feeling it and the lighting and the music. And he's someone that you should interview, and he is someone that the rest of this country should thank, because he's been involved in the wine world in America since the 90s, and he's just this, like, in LA, he's people know when you talk in the wine industry, everyone's like, "Oh, David Rosoff," but like, he was at Michael's. He had this place called Opaline that Wine Spectator loved. And
where's Opaline?
It was in the middle of LA, but it closed.
Yeah, I remember that place.
And he's an amazing human being, even though he likes a shitty soccer team, Arsenal.
Oh, he's an Arsenal guy.
Yeah.
No, actually, we're gonna have to get him on here. These are like, I love these stories because, you know, thank God for the Somm movies, because it brought some things to light. But like freaking people don't know. Like there's like people don't know. There's so many people who don't know who Kevin Zraeli is, man.
Yeah,
he's
he
the fucking
changed the
godfather.
world.
I mean, he's like the reason we have wine education in America is Kevin Zraeli.
That episode was baller. I listened to that before coming here to understand what I was getting into. Sean was like, "Are you sure you still want to do that?"
Yeah, so I definitely gonna have to connect with him, because and there's like, I got someone coming on. She was supposed to come on, but she's rescheduled. And I just met her recently, Brooke Sable, and like, there's just people who like are fucking ballers. Like, you go to a tasting, energy tasting, and they're like, "Oh shit!" I went to a tasting, I was like, who the fuck? Everybody like was bowing down to, and then you start hearing some of the stories. Like, it's like, and that's the thing. Like, who are the mentors? Who are like, and like, it's like anything else, right? And thank God for social media, but because of social media, like, certain things get highlighted that are not necessarily, what's the word? I think certain things get highlighted that I'm gonna have to finish that thought. But what I'm saying is, there are so many people who are integral to this wine game and got us here, and even like, and I'm not even talking like an OG like Kevin Zraeli. There's people like who are just making decisions, who like, if you know type people. And I, like, even like your story, man, like fucking, we're like, I'm diving in all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, dude, like we literally are gonna have to have you back. We're not even gonna get to New York with you, man.
Sorry, I can speed up.
No, I don't want. No, it's just like this is like, and this is the show too. It's,
I can bring barbecue.
It's long, exactly. It's long format. It's conversations, and like, first of all, the wine is just, it's a couple old friends catching over wine. So like, come on, man, how are we gonna get this all done in a short amount of time? So, all right, so you're back, and I totally could feel your wife, because I'm back in Jersey. It's like, there's something about moving back home that it can be. I'm not gonna be staying there, but like, so you get this great position with an iconic restaurant group. what was, I mean, like, I don't want to say what's that like, but like, and you share that like he made you into a som, but what specifically, like, is there a defining moment or like?
It was, I mean, working at a hot shit restaurant in a town like Los Angeles is nuts, because when you're in LA and you're the restaurant, those people come.
Yeah, they're coming. Yeah,
and you're like, is that who I think it is?
yeah.
And you have to act cool. You have to be cool as shit. You'd be like, oh, that's Paul McCartney. No big deal.
Right.
Oh, is that Han Solo? And oh, hey, Han Solo. You know, like, fuck. These are people that change your life.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, you have to deal with that, and then you have to deal with the guests who are like, oh my God, is that? And then you have to adapt to the, you know, it's interesting because it's fine dining, but it's fast and it's busy, and we're doing like 400 people a night, and like you're just like crushing it. And then, you know, you have the pressure of Mario Batali, Joe Bastianich, and then the goddess herself, another person, and people kind of in the food world, people talk about her and people know her, but Nancy Silverton, she changed the game for so many people. I mean, the reason we eat fancy bread in America is because of her. You know, and she's the best palate I've ever been around in my life. She can taste things and put flavors together in nuanced ways that make a difference. Like a microplane of a cornichon added to something changed the game. And being around that, and being around someone like David who sees the game, like he's like Bill Belichick of restaurants. He sees it in a way that you're like, what, really? And when you're around greatness, you either fail or you step. And I'm not saying I'm great, but you want to be part of that team, and you want to step up, and you want to push yourself, and you find and you look at what they do that makes them great, and you emulate that.
Well, you know, it's a game recognized game, right? So like, you know, the fact that you get to play at that level, like you're playing at that level. I mean, I stay humble for sure, but you wouldn't have been working with them people if you couldn't hang.
No, you work hard. I mean,
and
like,
it makes you, and that's the thing too. I hate to cut you off, but like when I was a kid, like I always liked to play with older kids because it made you elevate your game, right? Like, so working with them like makes you elevate your game. So,
and I think that it circles back to my childhood. Is like, my parents never dumbed down anything. My parents, like, I was sitting at the table and they were having serious conversations, and I was there. I was part of it. They may not have asked me, you know, my opinion sometimes, but as I got older, they did. But I was always part of the conversation. And so, you know, not being afraid of being in the room with your idols. And knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know, and making the move. And obviously sometimes you'll make the failures or you let your ego will slip, and you're like, oh, I can do this. And you're like, oh, nope, that was a colossal fail. Yeah, I get kicked in the nuts sometimes.
You know what? We're going to stop on get kicked in the nuts. But we are actually going to have you back for part two. We're going to have you back for part two. Amazing stories, man.
You just want more Dolcetto.
I mean, listen, I'm going to get that one way or another. Just so we're clear. I want you to bring something else, baller.
I got it.
Oh my God, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you for the deep dive, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry.
No, dude, this was perfect. Don't apologize. Dude, this is amazing. Like what you shared and you know, like people know you from the SIP trip, and that's great. And people now town know you around from, you know, you're on the streets, and it's hard work on the streets. But like, I'm about the stories, and man, you shared some killer stories, and we have like, we could have 3 more episodes. I mean, we got hours and hours of more story, my man. So,
we're almost in New York. Don't worry.
You know,
if you want to just have a story about what are the crazy things you saw in a restaurant,
yes, let's finish with that.
I got a lot of those. Okay, the funniest one, not the funniest one. There are a lot. So like specifically in Los Angeles, when like, you know, shit's off the rails, it's a busy restaurant, everybody wants in. There's like everybody in the restaurant is somebody.
Yeah.
Or they think they're somebody.
Right.
I'll never forget. So like, I'm kind of like a sommelier there. So like, for those that don't know sommelier, that's sommelier and manager. So you're a sommelier. You put it together. You got to manage people and be a sommelier. So the bartender like runs over to me. He's like, dude, we've got a colossal PITA, and PITA is another acronym we use, which means pain in the ass.
Yeah.
At seat number 2, he's like, he ordered the halibut. No, his wife ordered the halibut, and he ordered the steak well done, and he wants it now. And I was like, well, when did the check fire? And he showed me the check, and it was like 6 minutes ago.
Which is telling that anybody would fucking order a well-done steak at a fine dining restaurant. But anyway, was it Sizzler, motherfucker?
Well, and also to expect like a 2-inch steak to be well done in 6 minutes is physically impossible. You'd have to microwave it first, I think.
I'm thinking about who that could be, because there is someone who likes their steak well done. Anyway.
Okay, well, wait till you find out what this dude did. Okay, so I go over to the bar, and I was like, oh, hello, sir. How are you doing? He's like, I've got a complaint. Your asshole bar. I was like, whoa. I was like, stop. Explain. My bartender is a great person. You don't know him. He's doing his job. And he's like, no, you don't tell me what to do. I was like, we're back on the wrong foot. I'm just trying to help you. He's like, what? I was like, what can I do to help you? He's like, well, you can get my food here. I was like, sir, you asked for a well-done steak and you ordered it 6 minutes ago. He's like, I ordered 30 minutes ago. I was like, here's the time on the check. This is when you did this. He's like, well, your person put it in late. I was like, no, here's when your reservation was for this time. We have all the data. Don't fuck with us. I was like, I'm literally here to help you. Can I get you something in the meantime on the house? He was like, I just want my steak. And I was like, sir, I'm not God. I can't mess with time continuum. I can't make a big steak go faster. He's like, well, cut it in half and then just grill. I was like, that's not, our chef is not going to do that.
Right.
He's like, well, I'm the customer. I was like, you're not. And then he was like, well, do you want to fight? And I was like, I do. And then another person came by, because then he poked me.
Wow.
And I was like, no. And so someone like pulled me off. He's like, it's not worth it. And then he had the gall to say, I will ruin you. I'm an important producer here in Los Angeles. Your career is over. And I was like, fuck you and the horse you ran on. You get the hell out of the restaurant. He's like, what? I was like, you leave. He's like, you can't do that. I was like, yes, I can. Get out. And so we escort them out. He's like, no, I'm going to fight you. I was like, no. And we closed the door, and he tried to come back in. And then, like, all the service staff came. Yeah. And was like, What? And he backed down. So we looked him up. He was a porn producer. So my porn career was ruined.
Wow.
There we go. That's my story.
Oh, my God. That is probably the dopest story we've had. I'm thinking of titles now. Things to do when you're about to fight a porn producer in L.A. Jeff Porter, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Tell everybody where they can find you, how they can be a part of the things you're up to.
You can find me at Drink Eat Love on Instagram.
That's Drink Eat Love, because I heard Drinky Love.
Oh, Drink Eat
Yeah,
Love.
Drink Eat Love.
You can find me on Som TV. On Sip Trip and Eating and Drinking with Jeff. That's an app you can download and stream content about food and wine. And you can find me and my crew, Marquita Levy, Nils Paulson, Vicky Dinnig, all on Volcanic Selections, also on Instagram. I don't do Twitter.
Yeah, cool. All right, everybody. Oh, my God. This was so much fun. And there will be a part 2, because we probably got a third of the story, but I'm going to condense.
Yeah. Don't worry. You got the good part of my life. The rest is all downhill.
Until the next time, it's your boy MJ. Cheers to the Mavericks, the philosophers, the deep thinkers, and, of course, all you wine drinkers out there. Peace.